Welcome, folks, to this three-part video series called Are You a Person? If you have ever questioned if you are a person, perhaps you suspect you might be something else, then luckily you've come to the right place because we are going to get deep into all things personhood related. So get yourself ready because Act 1 is starting soon. This may seem like a really silly question, but are you a person? Do you know what the word person means? Do you know what the word person means in legal terminology? Is there a difference between these two, do you think? If you do think there is a difference, how does this difference impact you and your life? If you are honest with yourself, if you were unable to solidly answer these questions, then you may need to explore further into this topic to really grasp if you are a person and even if you should be identifying as one. The first place to start with this whole topic is with the etymology of the word person. So, person actually comes from the Latin word persona, which later evolved to the Old French word personne, which has evolved further into the modern English person. We can see that the literal meaning of person is a part played in a drama, a character that one adopts, a mask or face that you wear. Isn't that an interesting development right there? It actually reminds me of this really famous quote by William Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. A fascinating quote that really captures the essence of this mini-series so perfectly. When we say the word person, referring to the everyday English usage, we can see that the definition of person means a man, woman, or child, but it is also used when we describe someone's character. If you are a man, woman, or child, then according to this definition, you would indeed be able to identify yourself as a person, because this definition would apply to you, right? And therefore, the word applies to you. When this word is used to refer to someone's character, well, we can see that it is true because everyone does have a character, or what we could typically call a personality, especially with reference to the field of psychology. The character we have is directly linked to our likes and dislikes, as well as the unique qualities that we all have. For example, some people have better people skills than others, right? And we know that the more that you express who you truly are, the more authentically and easily you are actually playing your character. Now, things take a slightly different turn when we start to look at the law definition of person. The definition of person, which applies to the laws passed by Parliament, can actually be found in the Interpretation Act of 1978, specifically Schedule 1. It literally says, person includes a body of persons, corporate or unincorporate. This means that unless an act specifically states otherwise, the definition of person is to be interpreted in the same way for all of the other acts, right? And we can also see here that this definition has been in use since 1889. So it is not new and has been used throughout our recent history without any change. The thing is, I don't know about you, but I am not satisfied with this definition at all. In fact, the whole purpose of a definition is to make things clearer. This is why we talk about, for example, high definition, when we talk about the resolution and quality of videos and pictures, right? Which allow us to see the video or picture more clearly, the higher the resolution, the higher the definition. But with this law definition of person, really, I am forced to take a deeper dive into each part of the definition to actually make sense of this all, because, well, the definition itself has not brought me any clarity as such. So let's break down each bit, and hopefully this will help bring clarity for you as well. Let's first start with the word includes. So includes literally means to contain as part of something. So I can see that to contain, it means to put something into a container, right? To restrict the bounds of where something can physically go. So this straight away has alarm bells ringing in my head, as this links perfectly to some maxims that capture this essence really well. For example, the maxim, the expression of one thing is the exclusion of another, and what is expressed renders what is implied silent. These are relevant, right? Because they portray the same idea of containment and direct focus. So from this, we can therefore see that what follows after includes are the only things which the law definition of person is actually being proposed to apply to. As the definition specifies those to whom the definition applies, we can logically conclude that whatever is not mentioned is not to be included in the definition, and therefore whoever is not included cannot, by the very definition, claim to be a person. The next key bit is the word body. So body has a few different definitions that it could mean here. For example, 1. The main part of a written instrument, such as the central part of a statute or the middle part of a complainant's bill in equity. 2. Body of claim. 3. A collection of laws. 4. An artificial person created by a legal authority. 5. An aggregate of individuals or groups. 6. A deliberate assembly. 7. An aggregate of individuals or groups. 8. A person in custody. But in terms of the definition in the legislation, we don't really have a clear definition of body because this is often used synonymously with the word person. The only definition that I have found for body is actually in the Anatomy Act of 1984, specifically Section 1, subsection 3, which states, in this act, body means the body of a deceased person. This does make me question then if body in a more general sense is used to have the same definition, and if therefore the law's overall view and reference to body is really trying to get at a dead body, or essentially a body that lacks life, that just doesn't have life, right? The next focus is the word corporate. So this means something of, relating to, or involving a corporation, especially a business corporation. Then there is also this extract that I found quite useful as well to help us grasp what the word corporation means as well. So the extract reads, a corporation is an artificial being, invisible, intangible, and existing only in the contemplation of law. It possesses only those properties which the charter of its creation confers upon it. So this is so interesting to me because it shows me that a corporation does not exist at all in real life. It literally refers to something that exists only in the mind of man, which is so fascinating and so interesting. In terms of the legislation, however, in the Companies Act 2006, section 1173, subsection 1, it states, body corporate and corporation include a body incorporated outside the United Kingdom, but do not include a corporation sole or a partnership that, whether or not a legal person, is not regarded as a body corporate under the law by which it is governed. Again, this does not clarify anything at all, and I don't know about you, but it really irks me how complicated lawmakers have to make things sound by the way that they just write the laws or the definitions. I feel like it's so unnecessary and totally uncalled for, but of course, this is done on purpose to make you feel that you don't know anything and to make you feel inferior to those who can understand it, or at least they pretend that they understand. Then let's take a look at the last word, which is unincorporate. So there are no acts actually which define unincorporate directly. However, I have found on the UK government website their description of an unincorporate association, which I'm going to assume is what the drafters of the Interpretation Act intended when they used the word unincorporate. I mean, I have nothing else to go off of, so I'm only trying to make logical connections here, okay? So, the UK government say that an unincorporate association is an organisation set up through an agreement between a group of people who come together for a reason other than to make a profit. They then say that the individual members are personally responsible for any debts and contractual obligations. So upon review, I can see that the key bit here is that it refers to a group of people, right? So when applied to us, the question becomes, are you a group of people? I mean, if anyone were to say yes, then that does sound an awful lot like having some sort of split personality thing going on, right? So, if we gather all of the elements of this definition together, we can see that it includes XYZ, meaning that it applies to XYZ. Therefore, logically speaking, if you are not XYZ, then you cannot legally identify yourself directly as a person, as doing so is actually false representation. Then, with reference to the body, meaning the body of a deceased person, well, I am alive, and if you're watching this video, then you are alive as well, right? Then by definition, I cannot say I am a body. Then the point is, I am not a corporation because I'm not an artificial being. I actually exist in the real world and I'm all natural as well. And lastly, I am not unincorporate because I'm not a group of people. I do not have split personalities over here. If you recall back to the everyday English definition of person, well, let's look at the similarities and differences between the everyday English and the legal English definitions of person. Starting with the similarities. Would you look at that? 404 error not found. I mean, nothing else needs to be said here, right? Then let's go over to the differences. Well, it's pretty clear that the everyday English definition refers to men, women, and children, and the character that they have. The legal definition refers to a body with no life, an artificial being, and a group of people. We can see, therefore, that there is absolutely no relation between these two definitions. They are categorically different and refer to very different things. So with all of this in mind, I now ask you, when you identify yourself as a person, when you're interacting with the legal world, which definition do you think is being used to interpret your identity? When you interface with the legal world, you are interfacing under the assumption that you are a person. The law assumes you are a person, a legal personality. However, as we have realized through our exploration so far, you are not a person as defined in the current legislation. So naturally, this can only mean that there are two versions of you that exist concurrently. On one hand, you are either a living man, woman, or the offspring of a living man and woman. You exist in the 3D world and you can take action to make changes in the 3D world around you. On the other hand, you have a person or a personality that is void of life, so logically dead, is artificial, is a corporation, exists only as a mental construct in the mind of man, which can only be evidenced in the 2D world through paperwork. These two versions are not the same, but we all assume and presume that they are the same. It is as if there are no boundaries between these two, even though they literally exist on two different planes of dimensions. However, with all assumptions and presumptions, they can actually be rebutted or proven false when contrary evidence is presented. Hopefully, the diagram on the screen helps you realize this distinction between the person and the living in a visually appealing way. On the left side, you have the person, as defined in the current legislation. It refers to the legal personality which is evidenced on paper only. It is void of life. It is created by operation of law upon the registration of the birth of a baby. And it exists in the mind of man, as it is a creation of man then evidenced on paper. Then on the opposite side, you have the living, which are evidenced by their existence in the 3D world. They are full of life, being able to actually use their life force energy to make changes in their internal as well as their external environment. They are created by the act of the mother, father, and the ancestors who existed before them, and they have inalienable rights that naturally come with being a living man, woman, and offspring, namely the right to life and also the right to be free to do whatever they so choose, as long as they do not harm another fellow living man, woman, or offspring. So this brings us nicely to the end of Act 1 of the 3-part miniseries all about personhood. The next act is approaching, so let's head on over there now, shall we?